which you can basically see by shape. So basically, what does that mean practically? This big master shape, which we can cut up into 5 different shapes, or you can have 3 note per string shapes, whatever. It's all the same shape that we can then think about how to memorize and how we want to maneuver around it. This whole thing can be copied up and down 12 steps. So there's 12 of the same shape that can just move parallel up and down between the 12 notes on the fretboard. So it's all the same shape, right? And then within each shape, you can have any of the 7 notes as the tonic. So that means there's really only one master shape, which we break up into like different chunks. We break it up into, 5 chunks. The pentatonic positions are 5 out of 7 notes, and then you can add the other 2 note. We can use the cage system, whatever you want to do, 3 notes per string. But it's all the same shape. It's just being shifted up and back. And then within each shape, you can apply the tonic to it. Any note could be the tonic. So that means you have 7 positions within the shape. Now, this is where it gets messy, though, because we're going to apply out a numbering system as we do this to a relative scale degree. Now, as we do this right now, it's all going to work because we're only going to be thinking in the key of C. As long as we only think of the key of C, we can apply this numbering system. So 1 through 7. And as I go through the 12 shapes, then that 1 through 7 will move up and back beautifully. Perfect. But when we start to go to another node within here, another mode within here, say the Aeolian, the minor key, then what happens scale-wise is they renumber the system and they make that the 1. That's what we want to avoid. That's what I'm going to say is the problem, right? That's the problem we have on the guitar, because we're going to resist wanting to do that because I don't want to remember the same shape. I want to know all of these nodes in the shape intimately by the name that represents them most well music-wise. What is their name that represents them most well? Not the note name, not the relative position scale name, but the absolute modal name. Ionian, or call it mode number 1. Aeolian, or call it mode number 6. I want to keep those static. All right, so that's the problem we're going to come in. Now as we do the scales and build these out, you're going to get overwhelmed and say, "Oh my goodness. There's 12 times 7 different shapes I have to learn." We're going to go over and show you all those scale shapes, but remember, no, that's not how it is, right? How it really is you're going to have to move one shape around and then see where the tonic is within that one shape wherever you're playing it. All right, so that's going to be the idea. So now we're going to say the formula. I'm going to apply it here in terms of the wholes and half steps for numbers, 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1. And then we have the Roman numerals. Now, the Roman numerals, I just want to introduce here because that's kind of a shortcut to name the system, but it also gives us the capital and lowercase. And that allows us to give another layer of information. And typically that layer is going to tell us whether, if I build a chord off of these notes, whether it would be a major or minor chord. We'll get into more of that later, but I want to touch on it now because from a practical sense, that's what people typically learn first. So we're going to learn the notes in the scale, usually a C major first, and then we're going to learn that relative positions are 1 through 7. And then the next question is, well, I want to make chords. How do I make chords? Well, if you just make triad chords, all you really need to know is whether it's going to have a major third or a minor third, which you can indicate by the Roman numerals. I'm going to tell you right now that that's also a problem because I would like to know more than just does it make a major or minor chord, because this tends to make you feel like I'm moving shapes, right? So if I say the 1 is a major chord, the 4 is a major chord, and the 5 is a major chord, when I go in and build the shape over here, I'm thinking Ionian, which is the major chord, and then when I go over here, I'm thinking this is an Ionian major chord. See how that forces me to stop thinking of this as Mixolydian? It tells me to call that the 1. So it becomes a problem because it makes people visualize the guitar as they're moving through different shapes, but they're not. They're moving within one master shape. So I would like to at least address that, if not give a different numbering system. And you can accept that numbering system or not, but just recognize the issue so that you can memorize the fretboard as fast as possible, right? So this would be major, 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 1, 4, 5, kind of like the blues, and then minor, minor, minor. Now notice when I renumber the system, which we'll look at next time, for if I was to make this the root, like the 2 the root, what they would want to do is then call this the 1. So again, I don't want to call it the 1. I just want to say that I'm playing around the 2. Why? Because I already know the 2 is a minor. I already know the numbering system. If you renumber it, then I gotta remember which of the notes are major and minor, and that becomes a problem. Because why would I do that? That's more work that I don't need to. So then we have the notes. So these are going to be the notes in terms of the numbers, and then here's the note names. So this derives for us then, if I apply this formula out, you can see then clearly what happens if we're on the C. Notice that this 2 applies in between. So this is 2 from the C. So it's a little bit staggered the way it is, right? Because it's a 2 from the C, and then there's another 2 from the D, and so on and so forth. So if I count that out, then I get to these numbers, the note numbers, which is going to be 4 is a C, and then 4 plus this 2 is 6, and then 6 plus this 2 is 8, and then 8 plus this 1 half step is 9, 9 plus this 2 is 11, 11 plus this 2 is 13, right? Wait a second, it's 13. But there's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet. So whenever I get to something above 12, I would subtract 12, right? Because I'm going around in a circle. So you're going to say 12 and then back to 1, or 13 minus 12 brings me back to 1. How would we do that in an Excel formula, by the way? We'll show you if you want to do the Excel thing so you can build these tables efficiently. But then 1 plus 1 is going to give us the 3. Or I'm sorry, 1 plus 2 is going to give us the 3, and then 3 plus the 1 takes us around the circle again back to the 4. If we convert these numbers, see how useful it was to use the numbers there? If we convert those numbers, if we can code switch between numbers and letters in our mind, then of course we get the 4 is a C, the 6 is a D, the 8 is an E, the 9 is an F, the 11 is a G, the 1 is an A, and the 3 is a B. Okay, now in Excel, we will give you this worksheet so that you can change this 4 up top if you would like to. And then see, now that I've tested the concept, you can get other note names down here by changing it. So if I was in the key of D, we could just change that number and look at the notes basically in the key of D. I'm also mapping it out to the right. The reason I'd like to do that is because I'd like to compare sometimes, meaning maybe I want to compare the key of C side by side with the key of D or something like that. So I can build all of them to the right-hand side. So what I've done here, we just copied this over, the relative positions. Notice the beauty of this, how it maps in onto the fretboard. I'm copying this over and pasting it here. All the relative positions are shifting. That's exactly what happens on the fretboard. That Excel is the natural thing to practice. If you can think in spreadsheet, you're thinking fretboard, right? Because the same thing, if I just copy this whole thing and move it to the right, then that's how you shift from the key of playing in the key of C to the key of D or whatever you want to play. It's the same thing, same concept. We just copy this, we paste it over here. I'm going to change this to a 1. That's going to give me all the notes in A. How? Because an A is a 1. 1 plus 2 gives me 3. 3 plus 2 gives me 5. 5 plus 2 gives me 6. 6 plus 2 gives me 8. 8 plus 2 gives me 10. 10 plus 2 gives me 12. And then 1 brings me back to 1 because that would give me 13. Minus 12 gives me back to 1. And then if I copy and paste that over here again, we just copy and paste it just like we would on the fretboard. And we go, okay, now I'm going to make that a 2. So now we're going to start on a 2, which is A sharp or B flat, however you want to think about it. So we've got the 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. 11 plus 2 is 11, 12, 12, 13. 13 minus 12 gets us to 1. 1 plus the 1 half step brings us back around the circle to 2. And so on and so forth, right? So now we've got the 3 represents a B, And so same thing, we just copy and paste it for the 3, and we just do this all the way out. How many of them are there? There are 12. So notice, I notice when I'm watching like instructions on like a YouTube or something like that, that sometimes the tempting thing to do as a professional, as a musician, is to kind of try to, you almost have a drive to say, look how complex it is and I've mastered it kind of thing. And I get that because you have you're like proud that you've pulled it together, and that makes sense. But obviously the point here is to try to show how someone else could do it, right? You're trying to get it down to the baseline, simplest thing to understand. So if you say, hey, look at all these different scales, that's amazing, and I can play all of them. Watch. And I break out my guitar and it's like, here's the scale, here I am playing in a G sharp and a G and then an A, and I can play. I've memorized all these, but that's more like a magic trick, right? Because what's really happening, the way you want to see it, is that although there's 12 scales that looks overwhelming, you can just shift the shape up just like we did with this Excel worksheet. I can tell you, look at this worksheet I built right here. It's amazing. Look at all that stuff. I built it out just for you. But it didn't take me that long because I just copied and pasted the shape all the way up the sheet, right? And then changed a few numbers on it, right? So you have to know how to do that. It's not like there's no skill involved in it. It's still hard to do. But I mean, I could try to oversell it, or I could try to be as transparent as possible and say, hey, I'll show you exactly how to do it, how much time it takes. And so, right. And so that's going to be the general idea. Now, of course, we could, let's go down here. What else did I do here? So notice that it could be useful to see these things side by side. Now, if you have this Excel worksheet in Excel, what you might want to do is see like this column only, right, next to this column, so that I can compare these two. Or maybe I want to see this one over here next to this one. So this, in other words, this is too wide. How can I put them next to each other? Now, if you have these in Excel and they're all laid out to the right, you can just hide columns so that I can put these side by side. So if you watch through our presentation where we build it in Excel, even if you don't build it, you can then learn how to use this worksheet, right? You can learn how to hide columns to put the columns next to each other. And then I really think that if you have a well-designed worksheet, that you're going to maximize your ability to kind of compare and contrast different scales by being able to hide cells and put things next to each other and try to figure out whatever you're trying to figure out, right? So here's, for example, the B next to the A sharp and the D, right? So then we can do things like that. So this is going to be the copying the formula down. So this is copying it down with a 3. So I changed the note name to a 3, and that's going to be the general idea. All right. So notice what we've done here on the major scale. We've used this formula to map out the major scale, not only in the key of C, but off of the 12 notes, which we see in a fretboard can be copied and pasted up. What we'll do next time is then think about the modes, which would be taking any of the notes in our collection of notes, making it the tonic, and then you can think about, well, that could give me 7 new positions. That's where the wonkiness comes in, by the way, for a guitarist and a piano player, by the way, because that's where the numbering system starts to change on scale degrees in a way that is not as efficient for memorizing the instrument. You can argue that it is efficient for writing music, composing and whatnot. In some instances, we can talk about that later, but I'm concerned with mastering the fretboard right now. And so we'll talk about that in future presentations.